Want to learn how to make people do this?
You're okay. Maybe the I think it's that you're committing like
I'm angry because you're a little fucking weasel and I want to fucking slap you. That's why I'm angry. I'm gonna get a little bit triggered when you fucking treat me like I'm an idiot when I know way more than you do.
Well, I literally wrote the book on how to do that. Rational Answers to Stupid Question is my book that will be coming out in a few weeks. I've taken the most common arguments I hear in my debates and written comprehensive refutations of all of them. So if you want to know how to handle that really annoying uncle or your friend or coworker when they bring up some nonsense, buy the book and you will be well equipped. I'll have the official release date coming out soon, so make sure you're subscribed, have the bell notifications turned on so you can know exactly when that's going to be.
Can you any evidence that the Big Bang is real?
Okay. So, a little over 100 years ago, we didn't know very much about the universe. We thought that the stars we can see and some of the little smudges of light we can see was the entire universe. And then what we discovered was some of the smudges of light are at least hundreds of thousands, if not a couple million light years away, which means they couldn't possibly be part of the Milky Way. Some of those smudges of light were actually entire galaxies composed of hundreds of billions of stars. It's just that our telescopes didn't have good enough resolution to see them, for what they truly were until that point. So instantaneously, the universe all of a sudden became practically infinitely larger than we thought it was. Then what we figured out was when you look at the extremely far away galaxies, the light from them looks redder than it should be. It's called a Doppler shift or a red shift. It's a kind of Doppler shift. So what we found out was there's a direct correlation between how far away they are and how far away they're moving away from us. And what this told us is we live in a universe that is expanding. This has been known for nearly 100 years now. Now, a universe that is expanding means in the past, everything that makes up that universe was closer together. And the farther back you go,
Not
the closer
necessarily.
and closer together all the matter in this universe becomes. And when does it stop doing that? Well, we have no good reason to think that the universe used to be in like this state forever and then started going like this. Instead, we think it literally all initiated out of either a singular point, like an actual singularity, or some sort of very odd, I don't know, quantum state or something like that.
But
And
why does it
then
have
I
to
only have like one
originate
more thing
from
to
a
say.
singularity?
So from this, there are all kinds of extremely sophisticated mathematical and cosmological predictions that were made. And in the mid 20th century, those predictions rang true. And then we learned some new weird stuff, but we have nothing but evidence that so the point of giving you that whole history lesson is it wasn't the case that one day some guy named Jeff was sitting around and was like, you know what? I bet it was all this like Big Bang. And then scientists just started agreeing with it to get grant money or whatever. No, it was discovered. Science didn't have a position like the Big Bang until the evidence was discovered. And so that's where the scientific consensus came from, because this has been demonstrated with scientific evidence.
Do you think do you think that there is a consensus that the Big Bang is currently the origin of our universe?
No, it's just what the universe does. Nobody says it's the origin.
I mean, just the scientific consensus. I mean, is that what current
I I
PhDs who
just
are
answered your
working?
question
Well, so I'm going to go ahead and fundamentally disagree with you
about what?
that the origin of the universe is going to be a singularity.
I
And while
never
I do
said that it was. I literally told you no. And I told you that's not what scientists think.
Okay, I'm sorry, then please clarify. What is the Big Bang if you could summarize it in a single sentence?
It's the observed fact that the universe expands. We could just say it very simply that way.
The fact that the universe expands does not negate both modern theology as well as different scientific observations. That's all it is an
When did I
observation.
ever say that if the Big Bang is true, God doesn't exist? And if
No,
I
I'm
never
just
said
saying
that, who
that
does say that?
the thing on your profile says science rules. Join if you disagree with evolution or the Big Bang. And I'm asking what the Big Bang is. And if the Big
I
Bang is
told
just
you,
the
and then you
universe
said that does not
expanding,
discount theological explanations for where the universe came from. I agree.
it just seems so strange to me, honestly. And you can feel free to disagree with me that the notion of the Big Bang, or this idea that the entire universe came from a singularity, which, while I appreciate that is not your definition, I feel like that is the common canonical definition that people use.
No,
It's
yeah,
not true.
it may have began that way, and I don't mean that's what created the universe. I mean the universe has changed over time.
The
If like
universe is currently
do you just
expanding.
disagree with the scientific, like, do you disagree when astronomy tells us we live in an expanding universe? Are you saying that
I can
galaxies
tell
are
you
not
with
moving away from
my
each other?
Ph.D. in cell and molecular biology, and as a person who has studied genetics and currently has a laboratory in my house, that the universe is without a doubt expanding. I am just saying that
Okay,
you're
so
not your.
hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. You agree that the universe is expanding. Now run the clock backwards. What happens when we compress all of the stuff in the universe? What does it eventually do?
I think what you're suggesting is that it all becomes a singularity. Is that correct?
I'm asking you what you think.
I do not think that it's necessary for all things to become a point of infinite nothing in order for them to exist.
Infinite and nothing, that is an oxymoron. I'm just asking you, you agree that all the matter we see in the universe expands. If we run the clock backwards, it all collapses toward itself. What does it eventually do?
Can I provide an alternative hypothesis?
I want to know what you think it does.
So potentially, if you have a unit of space, let's call it a 1, and you take that unit of space and you divide it into thirds, right? We have a multiverse that we just take and all of a sudden divide it into thirds.
That
33% of
that was
that
a
could be,
nonsense statement. There's no
it
such
is
thing
not,
as you take a multiverse and divide it into thirds.
you're saying that the only origin, because, right? So if things keep compressing into a single spot, right? If things keep coming backwards upon and towards itself, eventually it reaches a point upon which case that both matter and time do not exist.
Right, like a black hole. We know for a fact that black holes exist.
Do we?
Yes.
What evidence is there of
We
a
have
black hole?
photographs of them, but before that, we had X-ray evidence of black holes like in the 70s, I believe.
Can
But
you please, but, and as an honest curiosity, what is the evidence? You say a photo.
I
A
just
photo
told you
of
we've
what?
taken multiple photos. Messier
Of a black
87,
dot?
the
What
the
did you take
the
a
black
photo
hole
of?
at the center of Messier 87 was the first one photographed. But way before that, like in the 90s and 2000s, we pointed, like, I think it was Hubble, at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and we could see stars orbiting around a central point, and these stars would get extremely fast as they got there, but there was nothing there. But what could stars possibly be orbiting? Well, it'd have to be something far more massive than the stars, but also this thing gives off absolutely no energy in the visible spectrum that we could see. The only thing that makes any sense is a black hole. And now we have photos of our black hole, I believe, as well.
So that's very interesting to me that you say the only thing that makes sense is blank, which means to me that you're taking all of the evidence collectively and making a conjecture based off of something that you believe based off of the current available evidence. In the future,
That's how science is done.
no, my love. That is not how scientists work. And that is why scientists love the flat earthers, because they look at everything around us and we go, hey, it does not make sense that the current
You think the
conjecture.
earth is flat?
Do I think the earth is flat? No, but do I love people who say, hey, let me look around the world around me and try to understand it better and not just take what other people say for granted?
So, Anna, since you study cell and microbiology, let's say some sort of outbreak occurs. Should we conclude that it is a voodoo curse or some sort of pathogen?
I don't think we should conclude anything. I think we should look at the evidence that is necessary to
We
prevent it from
have to
spreading.
we have to come up with a tentative explanation before we start making tests.
No, you don't. You
Yes,
just
you
need to
do.
come
That's
up
what
with
a
the way.
hypothesis is, Anna.
Okay, but why would there be I guess you're right. I'm coming at this from bias, assuming that it's a bacteria versus a virus and looking at the different modes of
No, the
transmission.
options were a voodoo curse or some sort of pathogen.
The voodoo curse. All right. And so, in this hypothetical voodoo curse, what sort of
I'm
experiments can we do?
asking you, should we assume, for the third time, should we assume it's voodoo curse or some sort of pathogen?
Can you please explain to me what different options we would take? Assuming it's a voodoo curse,
I am asking you which one we should assume it is.
well, I suppose it wouldn't matter if the voodoo curse could be prevented by wearing proper PPE.
I don't think PPE is going to stop magic. So, again, for the fifth time, I will not ask this question again. Should we assume, is it more rational? Let's go with this. Maybe I'm asking a bad question. Is it more rational to assume it is some sort of pathogen or voodoo curses?
I fully believe that a voodoo curse is a pathogen based off of my definitions.
Right. So you're just pretending that magic isn't magic.
Oh my God, people
I'm
thought it
trying.
was
You
magic for
really,
so
this
long.
really should not be difficult. We're imagining a world where magic really exists,
Yes, we
and
can. Okay, hold on.
magic does
Pause
not
for a
use
second. I
germs.
let you talk. I let you talk. And now there is a point that I want to make. And that is when Van Leeuwenhoek first invented the microscope, people thought that he was crazy because he looked at the gunk in his teeth and he
Yep,
sent
that
it
literally
to the
is
New
not what I'm
England College
talking
of
about.
Medicine
I'm
to
talking
say,
about a world where magic truly does exist. Voodoo curses are not pathogens. So for
voodoo
you to
curses,
say, oh, what
if
you're
there's a
really
voodoo
saying,
curse and
Eric,
it can
is
be
that
prevented,
what are the options are pathogens or pathogens. So no, that's not what I said. I said the options are a voodoo curse, actual magic, not involving anything that has to do with anything we know scientifically, or actual pathogens. So don't twist my argument so you can agree with it. Take my argument for what it actually is.
can I potentially pose a theoretical example that there is
Answer
a
the
disease?
question.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm trying to answer the question and you're not
No, you're
making it
not. You're
easy.
changing my question
Okay,
so
I
that
think I
so that
think
you
that
can
we
form
should
your own
assume
argument.
we should assume that it's infectious
Exactly. Why?
because it is the best way to protect ourselves.
No. Because if we were being rational actors, we would understand that we have no prior conditions or evidences that allow us to assume that voodoo magic is actually a viable explanation for what's going on. So we're going all the way back now. Why is the best explanation that those stars are orbiting a black hole? Because it's completely consistent with everything we know about cosmology.
May I pose an alternative point of thought?
Go ahead.
If I said that there was a voodoo curse that was going around, okay? And people got said voodoo curse and they died within, I don't know, 12 days, whatever. And I said, if you pray to this magic god Gaia, then you would not become infected with said disease. If in the future a similar disease arose, would you or would you not pray to Gaia?
Me? No, I don't believe in the supernatural.
But if theoretically it was effective, if we showed blind controlled studies that people who said this prayer at night were less likely to die, would you?
Okay, if you did that, then I would want to know what the explanation is, because I don't accept supernatural forces or magic as a viable explanation to something. So,
Can
for
you tell
example,
me
there
how
are lots of
antibiotics
holistic
work?
doctors that do, or that do like homeopathy, and homeopathy is obviously garbage. But what's really interesting is a lot of people who see doctors that practice homeopathy. A lot of those people actually do see some improvements in their life, but a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that homeopathic doctors spend a lot of time with their patients, whereas the average typical doctor, like in outpatient care only, or inpatient, whatever that is, only spends about on average like 7 minutes with a patient because they need to bill insurance as fast as they can. And so, they don't actually hear about, oh, what is it that you're doing in your life? Oh, okay, well, let me make these recommendations. So, in other words, homeopathic doctor or doctors that do homeopathy, whatever you call that, they give a lot of lifestyle recommendations that have nothing to do with any sort of actual like drug molecule or anything like that. And so people see improvements because of that. But that's the better explanation as to, yeah, if you literally put a single molecule of a drug in tens of millions of gallons of water and distribute it, does the water have a memory where it remembers
No, no,
the
no. I
active
don't
ingredient and
believe
then
in
that can affect people?
homeopathy.
Obviously, that's false. But there is evidence that you can get that people that do homeopathy do see improvements. But there's a better explanation as to why.
Well, okay, one, that is very interesting that people do see improvements. And I think that as a whole, society should look at that and say, hey, actually, why are they seeing improvements? And
I
what can
just
we
told you.
learn from that? Oh my God, you do not know specifically why people see improvements from homeopathic medicine. Okay? You don't.
I've
You
looked
don't
in
know
I've looked into this before.
what is the molecular
What is
mechanism?
it that I said that was illogical?
The point that I'm making is to go back to it, you don't want to take a medicine if you don't fundamentally understand how it works. How does penicillin work?
I'll answer this question, but this has nothing to do with anything that we have talked about so far.
I fully believe that it does. For reasons I can point out, but I don't want to cut you off.
It's okay. Do I know how penicillin works? It's antibacterial. I don't know if it produces some sort of lysing agent that dissolves like the lipid membranes of the bacteria or
That
exactly
couldn't
what it
happen. It
does.
would dissolve its own membrane.
Sorry.
Uh, It can't have that type of sort of lipid dissolving thing because mammals or any sort of eukaryotes have the same type of membrane. So it couldn't, you can't release like a
Anna,
lysing
that
agent.
how could you say that? Do you know what neutrophils are?
Yes, I do. And I know that
What
they
do
release
neutrophils do?
neutrophils destroy the invading pathogens via mechanisms such as, not limited to, elastase. Elastase is a type of enzymatic reaction that isn't capable of specifically dissolving a lipid bilayer, but it is capable of attacking specific phosphatidylserines where it interacts with the bond in order to make it a way that can attack prokaryotic or naked DNA cells.
Because
That's
they
how
have
that works.
because they have different like what do you call those? They're like protein carbohydrate hybrid molecules. I can't remember what they're called, like peptidoglycan or whatever. So it attaches to those, not the lipid membranes.
It's not just a generic lipid membrane because, well, one, elastase is going to go after specific molecules, including viral particles. So if they're expressing any sort of that, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you can attack self. I work
Look,
specifically in a lab for
right,
people with hemophilia.
right. Okay, I believe you, but what you said sounded silly, and so I needed to ask you that question because neutrophils use don't they use hydrogen peroxide as well?
No, that is in a lysosome. They do engulf it.
Right.
They do the microcytosis, they engulf it, and then they traffic it to the lysosome, which uses hydrogen peroxide,
Okay.
but they
the,
cannot
the the
naturally
point
produce
the
that.
point is that the neutrophils have stuff in them that destroy cell membranes indiscriminately. Uh,
I don't think it's indiscriminate.
hydrogen peroxide.
I don't think they release hydrogen peroxide.
I've heard that they do. I'm happy to be wrong about it, but that's what I've heard.
Really? That's how you get that sort of anti-inflammatory disease when people are constantly releasing the mechanisms which will dissolve all kinds of cells. That's actually specifically why we don't really have any good cancer treatments because the ability to differentiate between self and not self is incredibly difficult.
Stimulated neutrophils generate appreciable amounts of hydrogen peroxide, which may be responsible for autooxidative injury and to damage of adjacent cells. This is
That's
from the
exactly what I said. Auto-oxidative injury.
okay,
Auto. Self.
right. Okay, so like we got so sidetracked here, but I was just confused because it's like, well, the neutrophils have this stuff in them, so like to say that penicillin can't have whatever lysing agents because it would destroy itself. No, I think cells know how to be able to do those own kind of things. I mean, to me, that sounds a little bit like, well, snakes can't be venomous because it would kill them. Well, no, not necessarily. Anyways,
Actually,
what are we talking about?
do
You,
you
you
know
asked me
that?
if I would take a drug if I don't know what its effects are.
Yeah, I did ask that.
Okay. I have done that plenty of times because I don't know the specifics. But what I understand is that we have a system where drugs are tested. I don't think the United States necessarily does. Well, I don't know a whole lot about the medical industry. I guess I'm more thinking about like food stuff. But there's a system in place that where you have to scientifically prove that the medicine is effective. And so I trust the scientific medical enterprise that has set that up. I know that painkillers block pain. I know that antibiotics work against bacteria and they do not work against viruses. I know that if you take ivermectin, it can get rid of worms if you have them, right? Like
I think a lot of
stuff
this
like
is
that.
empirical evidence, evidence that you have, evidence from growing up in a country where when you were sick as a child, your mother brought you to the doctor with an eye infection and they gave you an antibacterial and it worked. And you trust the modern scientific establishment because of your own empirical evidence that you've gathered. All I'm suggesting is that not all of what science has currently deemed to be canonical is accurate, and potentially there are things out there that we currently don't have an explanation for, and dismissing people who disagree with that fundamentally hurts us and doesn't help us.
So are you familiar with the phrase put up or shut up?
But I, no.
So if you have an alternative explanation, that's all fine and good, but you need to provide evidence for it.
I don't know that I do need to. I mean, I guess
What?
if I have an alternative explanation, this first stemmed from the idea of can voodoo magic. And if there was an independent peer-reviewed scientific study that was put out suggesting that voodoo magic could heal, I don't know, genital warts, I couldn't automatically discount that based off the fact that it's voodoo magic.
Right. So like the homeopathy thing, we can find results where people that seek homeopathic care or whatever, I don't know how to say that properly, they actually do see improvements. Now, does that count as positive evidence in favor of homeopathy? Well, it technically does, but we need to explain this further because I've never seen any evidence about how homeopathy is actually supposed to work. I mean, I hear like the claims you put the active ingredient in water and then the water remembers the effects or something like that the active ingredient has. But what does that mean? None of these people can ever give us anything about, like, they can't explain how it actually would work in the body or anything
It
like that.
kind of does work
Because the active
sometimes.
ingredient specifically interacts with the body. So how can water remember an active ingredient and interact with the body in that way? None of that's ever explained. So the results are interesting, but it's just sort of a coincidence because I think we have far better logical explanations for what's going on. So we have
Is
claims, but we don't have evidence. And we
I,
very much lack any reasoning.
I do feel that scientifically there is some evidence which supports that the dosage of minimal agents of an infectious agent can prevent further infection.
That's what a vaccine is.
It does kind of sound like that, doesn't it? It also sounds similar
That's
to
not what I said, though.
No, you said that water remembers. And I'm saying that I have never seen any evidence of that. But I can
No, me
potentially
neither. I don't believe in
by
homeopathy.
which it makes sense.
What now?
I haven't seen evidence of it personally, but if somebody had a paper about it, I wouldn't immediately discount it because I can see a route in which theoretically this could be possible.
How?
Similar to that of a vaccine. Minimal doses of something can actually prevent
Yes, but
infection.
but in homeopathy, there is no active ingredient in homeopathy.
I suppose if you're just like, hey, here's water, but
Yeah,
I don't think that
it's
any.
water that touched something and then they dilute it to the point where I can't remember what it is, but it's like literally so absurd that it's crazier than, or like the ratio is more extreme than putting a drop of something in the ocean. Like it's insane. But
And if that
no,
worked,
when
if
you
people
like when
had
you do
evidence of
monoclonal
it, I would
antibodies,
read it.
there are antibodies in there. When you do homeopathy, there's no active ingredient in there.
Oh my goodness. Can I just say, if somebody came out with a paper and said, hey, if you come to this clinic in Heartland, Wisconsin, and you take a dose from Dr. Joe Schmo, you will be cured of your encephalopathy. And I was like, damn, that makes absolutely no sense. It's just water out of a vial. But you know what? Person after person after person was cured of this. And you look at that evidence, I'm not going to go, hey, this is just nonsense science. I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to say, hey, maybe there's something here, and I can look closer and say there's some sort of chemical or BPA agent in the test tube that they're giving to them that's actually curing them of a disease.
Yeah, not homeopathy. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. Let's figure out what's actually going on. But again, there's the homeopathy has claims, but I don't think it has any good evidence and it completely lacks reasoning.
I don't think that its claims are what make it such a wonderful contribution to society. It's as, oh my, I shouldn't read these because they're kind of mean, but these whataboutisms or other things that people are saying in the comments, they're kind of the reason that I love science so much is that people are saying, hey, this is interesting. This is something I should look at closer. And you're right, sarcastic therapist or OG Xtel. And this is really unpleasant in all ways, but I do.
That's what the internet is like. The internet's the worst place on planet Earth.
Oh my God, I go on here and it's like, you're on here like the Big Bang. It's the reason why things are the things. And it's like, my guy, I fundamentally disagree with you.
But you don't.
I love science. Oh, shut the fuck up, Matt 420. You can go.
Anna, just talk to me. You
I
don't
love
disagree with the Big Bang. I'm almost certain you don't.
No, I fundamentally do not believe in the Big Bang because that was
Why?
outdated in about 1998 when string theory came about. And string theory has this idea that there are multiple universes, and when they
There's
collide, they
no
create a new
no, you
universe.
don't need string theory for multiple universes.
Oh my goodness. No, the Big Bang suggests a universe, which comes down to one singularity, and the current evidence suggests that is not the case. Yes, it is contracting. Yes, it is.
What contradictory evidence do you have? Also, there's like zero scientifically there's how do I want to say this? There is no evidence of string theory outside of just physics papers.
No. I have one. That was a very insightful question, and thank you for asking. Of what evidence do I have towards string theory?
No.
And
I'm not asking what evidence do you have towards string theory. So you're saying that string theory is the alternative to the Big Bang? Because
Yes.
I've never heard a physicist say that, and I talk to lots of them.
I think that string theory is currently, I do not feel that Big Bang is the current canonical thinking of the scientific community. That has been my experience. I, I'm definitely not saying Big Bang theory or creationism. It's not like those are my two dichotomies. I fully believe that the Big Bang theory kind of like ignores an entire, and I do have some evidence that is interesting to share if you're interested in hearing about why the Big Bang theory doesn't entirely make sense.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Are you familiar with like chiralism of,
Yeah,
sort of,
left and right-handed molecules.
yeah. Well, so there's this idea that chiralism is only associated with sort of evolutionary development, that molecules in their very natural state, going down to atoms and to the quarks and to the neutrinos and all of those, they have no chirality. It's really only the enzyme. But there was this really interesting experiment that was done where they took a gold particle and they spun it around in a circle really, really quickly. And then they looked at the neutrinos, which were being spewed out of it. And what they saw was chirality. They saw that they only came out spinning in a single direction. And this was so exciting because if you have one direction, theoretically, that means that you also have the opposite direction, that there could potentially exist a universe in which these neutrinos are spinning the opposite direction. And that's the only thing I can think of.
The concept of a multiverse was born out of quantum mechanics, not from string theory.
And what's the difference?
Between quantum mechanics and string theory?
Yes.
I'm not the best person to explain the differences between them, but string theory posits that there are these like infinitesimally small like strings that make up everything. So I don't, you know what? I actually shouldn't do this because I'll say something so wrong. But
I'm not trying to get you. I'm like honestly not
Right.
trying to do like an I gotcha with this thing that you don't know. I don't feel that way. I genuinely want to get to common ground and get to the truth.
Well, wait a minute. Do you know what string theory is?
My understanding of string theory is that it's based more off of waves rather than being the particles. So if we look at the difference between mass and energy, and if you have more energy and then you have less mass, it's based off the idea that electrons have a wave pattern around the protons rather than having a specific orbital velocity.
That's quantum mechanics.
That's
Quantum
the same
mechanics, there are
thing.
lots of quantum mechanical physicists that say the universe literally just is a wave function.
We are just a wave function. Hey, wait, someone named Kevin said I was pleasant.
Okay, follow him. Maybe you guys could set something up.
I think that's delightful. I don't know. I guess what I
Kevin,
feel,
give her a follow.
I guess what I feel doesn't matter, except that my personal opinion is that if you look at the current political climate of scientific opinion, it's that there's scientists and there's not scientists. And you can either believe what scientists push down your throat or you can believe what the non-scientists push down your throat. And honestly, neither of them, I feel, is very accurate in the very truest scientific sense, and that you should be able to get evidence, gather evidence from all kinds of different sources, even if it disagrees with some of the current political ideations, and take it at face value for the evidence that it is. And I appreciate that you are letting me sit on this soapbox, and you should be interrupting me because I am still talking. Anyways,
Have we run out of things to talk about?
oh my gosh, I could talk about this for years. And I
Oh
am
no.
a scientist, okay? I got my PhD working in blast traumatic brain injury when I looked at the mesenchymal stem cells. Do
I
you know
believe
who I
you.
worked under? Mario Capecchi. Okay, Mario Capecchi, who in World War II was put into. His mother was put into a Nazi concentration camp, and he was supposed to be taken care of by a relative, but he
I
wasn't, and then
believe
he
you.
ended up on the streets. Mario Capecchi discovered the knockout mouse. He was the graduate student of James Watson, right? Mario Capecchi, graduate student of James Watson. Mario Capecchi ended up marrying two of his postdocs, but one of his postdoc, which he did not marry, is Deneen Wallach, who's at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I was Deneen Wallach's postdoc.
Okay, yeah, I believe you.
Don't make her cry. Oh my God, shut the fuck up, Matt number 3.
Okay, so is the reason you think the Big Bang is false because you think string theory is true?
Yes.
Okay, so really quick, you don't doubt the evidence in favor of the Big Bang? You just still think it's false because you think that that evidence is explained by string theory?
I think that the logical conclusion of all things are shrinking or the universe is expanding. I do not debate with you that the universe is expanding. My only argument is that just because the universe is expanding doesn't mean at one point it was a singularity.
Okay, so yeah, I agree it could be other things, but what else does a universe that if we run the clock backwards do as all the matter in it collapses toward itself? What else does it would it do?
Have you ever baked a loaf of bread?
Probably, yeah.
If you take a loaf of bread and let's say I just have my yeast in front of me and I made my little dough and I cut it into thirds and I let it expand and I let it rise.
Yep.
It expands does not mean that all of my bread and all of my yeast came from a singularity.
Right. What if we took the do you think that black holes exist?
Do I think no, I guess I don't actually. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So what I was going to say is that I think your bread analogy is not very appropriate because bread doesn't act like a universe. I don't necessarily think that black holes act like a universe. But what we actually have going on with our universe is that it expands like literally faster than the speed of light. Now, a black hole doesn't collapse
Wait,
faster
that's
than the
not
speed of
true.
light, but close to it. And when you take matter and you collapse it in that way, it does produce. We don't know if it's a true singularity or something somewhat
Wait,
different. We
you
just know
think it
that the current laws of physics don't really explain it. Your bread thing, I think, was a really inappropriate
that may be
analogy.
very inappropriate, and I'm so happy to talk about that. But did you just say that the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light?
Yes.
If the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light, how could you possibly see any changes?
Well, things that are currently um, there's a couple ways I can answer this. So the way this works is if something happens, the universe is 13.7 billion years old. There are distances in our universe that are farther away from that. Anything that happens at distances farther away from that, we'll never know about it. But anything that happens closer than that, we will eventually get the information, even though even though the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light.
I don't think that
So,
you would. If
sorry.
if we are, the same distance away from the moon right now, and the moon moves away at the speed of light to 1 light year away consistently, and that expanse is consistently moving at, I don't know,
Yep.
1 light year per year,
Yep.
I don't think we would ever see it.
No, you do. So there's this. You can go on Wikipedia and read about this. It's interesting. Look up the ant on a rubber rope paradox. So the paradox goes like this: there's an ant sitting on a rubber rope. The rubber rope is infinitely elastic. We can stretch it for literally infinity. It doesn't exist, but it doesn't matter. It's just a math problem. The ant starts walking at a speed of 1 centimeter per second. The rope expands at 2 meters per second. Does the ant ever get to the other side of the rope? It sounds like that's impossible, but the answer is that the ant actually does, and you can calculate how long it would take. The basic reason why is because even though the rope is expanding, the ant is always covering some ground. So the ground that the ant covered, part of the expansion is occurring in the ground that the ant already covered. So the ground that the ant covers is never deleted by this expansion. It takes an absurdly long amount of time, but you do eventually get the information. And if anybody's criticizing, I think I saw a Wikipedia comment, Herder, you're using Wikipedia. I just say that because they have a really nice visualization of it. This is a math thing that you can get this information from anywhere, but Wikipedia is a great place to get information. And then you can check that information. So anyways.
I'm sorry. This is very, actually, legitimately insightful. Okay, so if you have an ant, and I'm just trying to write this out. The ant, and I'm sorry if I'm bothering you, you can go to someone else. But if an ant is walking 2 units per year.
If you traverse within a space at a speed that is slower than that space is expanding, you do still have the ability to traverse the entire space.